I do
Mm.
remember vividly assisting my mentor, and we were in a church, and it was after the ceremony, and the bride and groom are standing like chest to chest, and I'm behind them with a video light while the photographer photographs them in the church, and I could hear the groom looks down and he goes, "Are those fake lashes? How much makeup are you wearing?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, is this how wedding days are?" Like immediately jaded. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, all the magic and romance has been stripped out of this.
Every event photographer is told the path goes through weddings. Stephanie looked at the path and decided it was the trap, not the ladder. Today, she's shooting for Expedia and Toyota, and she'll tell you the pivot that was harder than anyone warned her. Stephanie Sanju is the founder of Sanju Photography, a corporate event and conference photography business serving South Florida and the greater Raleigh, North Carolina area. I'm excited for her to share her journey with you on how she was able to pivot from doing weddings to going into the corporate vein. You don't want to miss out on this conversation because it's going to give you some tangible steps and things to consider when you are building your event industry business. Let's get into today's conversation. It's so great having you on today's podcast episode, Stephanie. Thank you so very much for saying yes and being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm super excited about today's conversation because I've been able to watch from a distance, like what you've shared on TikTok, and even with prepping for our interview today to even learn a little bit more about your transition. And I find that sometimes, especially with photography, I feel like there's so many components of our industry that people have terms, but don't understand that that one term can be extremely broad. So I know of you from online for your photo booth. However, that is not how you started. So let's start from the beginning. How did you actually start doing, getting into the creative side of running a business?
Yeah, I would say that it probably started in high school when I realized, and my mother told me that I was not going to college. So I was kind of a punk in high school. I had long purple hair. I was smoking in the bathrooms, and wasn't doing very well in school. I was in the National Art Honor Society. I was taking a lot of electives and creatives. I just don't do well in like group settings, I guess, or with a boss. And so I barely graduated high school and kind of got into the restaurant industry.
Mm.
And for my 18th birthday, my mom got me a camera. So it's the same story that every photographer has. And it was actually a film camera because it was back in the 1900s. And it was a roll of film that actually had like Blues Clues printed on the bottom of each print. So
Mm.
bizarre. But anyway, so, I grew up drawing and painting, and I realized that this photography thing is a lot faster
Mm.
than sitting there and drawing and painting. Fast forward, working in restaurants, bartending, even like restaurant management, and working on the side, picking up photo shoots or doing photo shoots for. I started with models, and I'm using air quotes here for
Loosely.
yeah. So I started with models and was photographing them in like abandoned places. It was a really popular, trendy thing to do in the early 2000s. But I was learning about light and how to photograph women and posing, and just kind of like dealing with other people that weren't just myself. I realized that these models had no money and this wasn't going to be a lucrative career for me. So I moved into photographing families. I did really well with that, loved it. And then I moved into weddings because I needed money. And from there, I had a mentor who took me under his wing and kind of karate kidded me for a year or two, and it kind of took off from there. And then about 7 or 8 years into photographing weddings full time, I went to a photography conference in Newport, Rhode Island, and saw a photo booth. And I had just told another photographer friend of mine because she just bought a photo booth. I was like, that's not the right move. Nobody's gonna want this. Nobody wants a photo booth. That's so cheesy. And then I saw it and I was like, I'm gonna buy that. So it kind of went from there. So started offering the photo booth to my current couples, started very cheap at like $300 a wedding and moved our way up. And then just last April, so April of 2025, I finally retired from photographing weddings and we're doing photo and video experiences full time with Juju Booth.
That's so awesome. And I appreciate about your share. is that I feel that sometimes people think there's this arrival, like, oh, they may see you now, but
Mhm.
they don't know all that you had to do to get to where you are now.
Oh, 100%. I actually had a talk about this at Photo Booth Expo in Vegas a couple of years ago. And it was basically like what Chili's taught me about the photo booth industry. And it's anywhere from, it's things from walk in organization and how that applies to how I actually organize my storage unit for my team, or replying to customer emails when they're frustrated with something or we're not connecting on the same line, and it comes from writing emails and sending coupons about cold queso in their to-go order. So it's all intertwined. And then, scheduling employees or handling employee conflict, HR. Like I said, I didn't go to college. So learning all of those skills in the real world, like the restaurant industry, was integral, like in my development into this career.
Yeah, and I think it's important for people to understand, like, every season, like, maximize it. They're not looking to see what they can learn in
Hmm.
that specific season because regardless of where you're going, I don't feel personally that anything is ever wasted. Everything is intended for us to learn something to apply to the next level or the next chapter in our life. And I'm sure that even with doing weddings, there's something to learn, to head even into the corporate space. And I feel that people should give themselves the opportunity to evolve and with evolution learn so that
Yep.
you can apply what you're going through and experiencing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's, if you really look into it, I mean, the structure of a day at working at a restaurant is very similar to a day working at a wedding.
Yes.
And then the same with working corporate events. It's actually even more complex working corporate events. But
Yes.
my husband and I joke about this all the time because he's also in restaurants, but not in operations. He does like supplies for multi-franchise units,
Mm.
but he won't work events with me. It drives him crazy because it's so, they're so fluid. Like the rules are never the same. He's like, no, it has to
Yeah.
be black and white. I'm like, that's not how we roll here. Like I need you, but yeah, it is funny seeing how similar really everything is and how everything really ties together.
And as you were saying is I wish that more people like, I feel that, maybe since the pandemic or that's when I became more present to it, the ability to shadow individuals or the value from shadowing individuals, from doing internships to even working with someone and then eventually branching off on your own. I feel like that has been lost. And what happens is that because it's not something that everyone tries to do because they're trying to make money now, is that it makes it faster for their businesses to fail because they haven't allowed themselves to learn. What are your thoughts around that?
I have many thoughts on that and big thoughts. So I think about this a lot, actually, especially as I'm scrolling TikTok where we met. Think the entire ecosystem has changed. So back when I started, and I don't mean to sound like grandma, but like, we had things like DeviantArt and and Creative Live
Yeah.
and The Wedding School by Susan Stripling. And there were long form educational content that you paid for online that you could like sit and do and work through e-workbooks and everything. And those spaces are gone. So, there's nowhere really for folks to learn. And so they're turning to social media also because our attention span is like a
Yeah.
goldfish. You know what I mean? So we're just kind of ingesting all of these 8-second clips, and this is where people are getting their education. So, and also, and I struggled with this while I was a wedding photographer, trying to find a second photographer to work with me who didn't just want to add to their portfolio. And it was a struggle because I'm telling them, like, listen, like, these are clients that have paid me thousands of dollars. This isn't a training day. Like, I need you
Yeah.
to just kind of watch. And that's when I was talking about my mentor and how he karate kidded me because for the first year following him on weddings, I was not allowed to bring my camera. There was
Mm.
no camera to my face because if I have a camera to my face, I'm not listening for the bridesmaids giggling in the other room, and I'm
Yeah.
not waiting for the wedding planner to come up and anticipating what she's going to tell me. So, learning all the different nuances and how wedding days or event days or days at a conference or convention really run without a camera to my face was major. And like I said, I don't think creatives are have that space or have that opportunity anymore because they
Yeah.
just want to learn it quickly and to get that stuff on socials. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it was just unfortunate because I feel like the life cycle for failure has shortened due to
mhm,
that.
yeah.
And what happens is that it makes people jaded because too, the downfall of social media is that
Mm,
people are always showing the highlight reels,
right. Yeah.
like the key points, and not even seeing like how much work it takes, like how
Yes.
to hire the team, how to manage people. And because the reality of it too is like that's not what social media is either. For people
Mhm.
that really are in the weeds of it, we don't have the time. Like we're on, like how I saw one of your posts recently, you were like, I sent out all these quotes and things like that. Like we're working. Like,
It's not sexy. Yeah. It's I don't know. I feel like I had a better thought there, but it's just it is sad to see. I do wish that there were more mentorships because yeah, they don't see that it took me 4 hours to come up with one proposal for
yeah,
a 5 figure activation, or they think that I'm just posting on TikTok and people are sliding in my DMs and they don't
yeah,
understand that there's different audiences. And
yeah.
but I mean, maybe I was just lucky to start where I started. But
But what I am also curious is that you stayed in the wedding industry for so long. Like, I
Mhm.
applaud every person that does that. It's not
Mhm.
my ministry, very clear of that. Like, there's certain things I know about myself. Someone going back and forth with me on a color probably isn't
Mhm.
my choice of living. But
Yeah.
people that do weddings, I'm like, you obviously have to be great at it to last a long period of time, to deal with the temperaments, to deal with all the
Yeah.
things, which is totally different than corporate. And we'll talk about corporate later on in this, but like, I applaud you because like, I tell people like corporate has its own little nuances. However, the budget's the budget.
Mhm.
The colors are the colors. Like, it's not this specific shade of pink
Right.
minutia that,
Well, nobody's posting to Instagram or TikTok about how excited they are for their conference coming up in 6 months, and you know what I
yeah,
mean? So, yeah, it's not like a major life event, and I'll be
yeah,
completely honest, I think I was pretty jaded, like, from the jump as well. So I do
mm,
remember vividly assisting my mentor, and we were in a church, and it was after the ceremony, and the bride and groom are standing, like, chest to chest, and I'm behind them with a video light while the photographer photographs them in the church, and I could hear the groom looks down, and he goes, "Are those fake lashes? How much makeup are you wearing?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, is this how wedding days are?" Like, immediately jaded. I was like,
yeah,
wow, all the magic and romance has been stripped out of this. And I feel like I might have been jaded like from the beginning. So
yeah,
I also think that the way that I work is I know I might stay a little bit too long in areas where I know that I'm good at what I do, not
mhm,
necessarily that I love what I do. So it's just like the restaurant industry. I don't think anybody loves it. I can't really name one restaurant manager that is happy with their life, and that is my opinion.
yeah,
But I know that wedding photographers do love it. I was never the, "Oh my god, I'm gonna be your 6th bridesmaid bestie, fluff your train." I was more like, "I'm not fluffing your train, that's her job, and I'm gonna photograph what happens." So, I was kind of the anti-wedding
yeah,
photographer, but I
yes,
had clients that loved that. So,
yeah.
at least I brought in the clients that kind of matched my mentality, so
But I'm glad that you said that because I think that one thing that happens when people hear about photography,
Mhm.
well, I would say probably almost any part of events, is that people don't understand there's different veins of it as well. We only really publicly see maybe branding headshots
Mhm.
and then weddings. And then
Yeah.
now with the baby and the bassinet
Yeah.
situation, like outside and in graduation. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of all, but not knowing that there's so many nuances inside of either storytelling and things
Mhm.
of that nature. And so, would you say through your process and journey, did you give yourself the freedom to actually explore what you really enjoy doing? Uh, or do you feel like you just stayed on the wedding path because you were good at it for so long, or through that process, did you allow yourself to just see what
No,
potentially might spark?
I definitely I had to like it, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I had no other choice. I didn't have any other skills. There was that was it. I can either make a badass martini or I can, shoot the shit out of your wedding. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I also photographed families and I kind of again went against the grain and only did, well, I did the traditional lifestyle. Let's go out to some random field in this tree that means nothing to you. We'll pose and blah, blah, blah. But my love, like I really loved my photojournalism. I did day in the life sessions with families. So up to 8 to 10 hours, sometimes sleeping overnight, photographing the family for a full day. And I'm talking like meltdowns, tippy toes on the stool to brush their teeth, like, anything. So going to Publix or the grocery store, like I was just photographing everything, but in a true to life kind of manner. And that really spilled into my photography and how I approached wedding days that way because I was just sick of the like, why are we hanging a dress in a tree? Like, what are we doing here? Or like, why,
Yeah,
why are we balancing the ring between two Manolo Blahniks? I don't understand like why, like nobody's reaching for these photos in 40 years.
at all.
So yeah, so having a healthy kind of disdain towards the industry, I think like
Yeah.
really helped me bring in the clients that I wanted to shoot.
Yeah, and I think too, it allows for your ideal client. And I think that's something for people that are listening to it right now. It's yes, you want to look at what works and what didn't work for other people, but also one of the things that you want to, I think people need to give themselves the freedom to is to express and explore what
Mm,
does creativity look like for them. It doesn't matter if you're a photographer, it doesn't matter if you're a videographer, it doesn't matter if you do makeup, if you do cakes, your ability to market to your target audience comes through your creativity when you are able to communicate it clearly.
correct. And that's the thing that gets people out of the industry so quickly is when, I mean, yes, it's work. It is still work. The
Yes.
unfortunate thing is that it's fun as hell and it looks fun from the outside. And so that's why
Yes.
there's low barrier to entry. But yeah, once you become stagnant and, not to mention jaded, but once you're just kind of doing the same thing over and over again, and you're not, like we said before, adapting to
Yes.
the newer generations or the newer trends, and it's time to get out. And for me, in late 2024, early 2025, I was starting to see the writing on the wall that, yeah, maybe I'm not connecting with,
Hmm.
this newer generation, or maybe I'm not loving how there's now a content creator for every vendor on a wedding day. And I don't, really, I don't subscribe to the whole, the, the weddings are about the photos. I believe the photos should be about the weddings. So I just kind
Yes.
of bowed out gently and knew that it was my time and moved on to photo booth in full time.
And I definitely want to talk about that later on because I do feel that if we even think about photos,
Hmm.
like because we're around the same age. I remember when I was in grade school, I don't remember what grade it was. I remember when I got my first Polaroid
Yeah.
camera. And I was so happy going to school and taking photos with my Polaroid. I had all kinds of cameras growing up, and I used to
Mhm.
love messing with that stuff. But it's evolved. Everything evolves. And I don't think people, as business owners and entrepreneurs and founders, we don't actually take the time to look at what are the trends, and
Mhm.
sometimes it might be because we're just surviving. We're surviving. We're just I'm
Yeah.
trying to take care of the bookings. I'm trying to do all these different things. And so they're not allowing themselves this space to actually be curious, to explore creativity, to reconnect to what makes it passionate for them. All
Mhm.
of those things are going on. So we'll definitely go and talk about that a little bit further. But what I did want to discuss though was like the reality of you starting your business in the first couple of years. Like what was that for you? Like from a financial stand in the early part?
Yeah.
Because I feel that for some people, when they go into the industry, they have this idea of how much money they can make, will make, how much they can charge, how many hours they have to work. Was your level of expectation starting a business the same as it was when you actually were, in the weeds of running your business?
So I started the business kind of accidentally. So, like I said, I I graduated high school. I knew that I wasn't going to college. I knew I needed a creative outlet and something I could do on the weekends while I wasn't working at the restaurant. But I happened to be dating a guy who was an accountant, and he was
Mm,
like, "I'm gonna get you kind of set here, so blah blah blah." So he actually made me create, Sanju photography, and was like, "Here's your tax documents. Keep this close." And I was like, what does this mean?" Like I'm a photographer, so. Getting your first business account and keeping things separate and having to learn about accounting and business management and everything with just a barely high school degree from Delray Beach, Florida.
yeah.
It probably took me 10 years longer because I didn't have a formal education, I'll be totally honest. But I was also single, no kids until about 4 years ago. So it was staying up until 2 in the morning. It was losing a lot of friendships or friend trips because I'm photographing weddings on the weekends, or, because I'm also bartending until 11 p.m. on a fight night or whatever it is. So it's like, yeah, there were some major sacrifices. The finances weren't great. I can actually pull up my finances because I've had the same CRM since 2012. But it was like five because I was established in 2007, and about 5 years later is when I was like, okay, I think this could actually like work and we can do this because you're chucking a couple $100 into your business account and you're like, oh, I'll buy some film or whatever. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah, you learn a lot, and there's nobody in the creative industry that's really teaching creatives about that side.
Mhm.
They're doing these retreats in Italy, and they're showing you how to use this new lens and put pantyhose over your lens to make it look vintage. But nobody's teaching you about like, hey, you got to prepare for quarterly taxes and
Yeah.
like how about a Roth IRA? Do you want to retire anytime soon, or
Yeah.
maybe you should mark your brand name. So there's a huge gap in the creative industry that's needed for that for sure. But yeah, it was a struggle. I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't puppies and unicorns. It was definitely a struggle, and there's still times where I'm like, I should quit. But
Yeah.
this is what we do.
But I think that's real. Like, because even for myself, like I've been in the event industry for 15 years, and similarity, I did start the business to be a business owner. I was
Mhm.
kind of in the eat, pray, love part of my life because I
Yeah.
had an engagement that fell through, and I was like, I just want to do something that makes me happy. And here we are, 16 years later, and it has been a lot of learning lessons. I did go to college and I had a lot of family with businesses, so no one was really talking me out of it at all because they've all been in it in some kind of capacity, which I even tell people like, understand again, my way of thinking is a little bit different due to those things and understanding specific types of cycles. Like, because I've seen all the cycles, either as a kid of a parent that has a business or have businesses, or through my own journey as an entrepreneur and understanding that as much as like I try to actively talk about the behind the scenes, so many people want to hone in
Yeah.
to the sexy side. And I'm like, but like that's the act of being a business owner. I'm talking about what it takes to be a
Yeah.
business owner, and it's two different worlds. I hope you're enjoying the conversation thus far. Stephanie has been giving some really great insight as to her journey. Regardless if you have been in business for less than a year or over 5 years, growing a business can be challenging, especially when you do not understand how to create strategies that are aligned to your goals and having the accountability to be able to hit them. If you're someone that's been in business for over 2 years and you're looking to get your business to the next level, I highly recommend for you to check out my monthly group planning session to be able to learn about our next group so that you can start planning for the next month. For example, our July session, we're planning for August. Our August session is going to be planning for September. So if you are looking for accountability and true coaching and guidance to be able to create a strategy that helps you win, this is for you. I look forward to seeing you in our next session. All right, let's get back to the interview.
Yeah. No, completely. And I see it on social media, and maybe it's just because I'm in my mid 40s and I've got a tinge of jealousy, but it's like these wedding photographers and their cute little outfits that they're buying for each new wedding, and they're matching to the wedding theme. And I'm like, these are not tax deductible. Like, what are you
At
doing? But
all.
yeah, or and they're just kind of jaunting off all over, or even wanting weddings and events in other countries, so long as the couple pays for their travel only. And it's just,
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, it definitely looks sexy and looks romantic from the
yeah,
outside, but they're not seeing, coming home from working, shooting for 12 hours, coming home, and then immediately putting the card into your computer, making sure all the photos are there, backing them up 3 times, getting sneak peeks ready for the very next day because that's the
Mhm.
expectation now,
Mhm.
and for content creators when I dipped out. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's a ton of work, but nobody's showing that. So, and if you do show
Yeah.
it, you tend to look like a grumpy old lady. So what can you do?
No, but I'm glad we had that part of the conversation because I do feel like there is that disconnect. And as much as I can appreciate social media, depending on the day and the time and the topic, and I do feel that as much goodness it has done for exposing people to entrepreneurship, I definitely think that it doesn't serve people with a realistic expectation of what entrepreneurship actually is and the amount of growth that's necessary to be able to sustain
Yeah,
past 2 years, so sustain past 5 years, and having just that kind of connection. I just don't feel that people always have that. So we
yeah.
did speak about like you being in the wedding industry, you were building, you were booking clients, and then something starts to shift. So what I want to now dig into is yes, I understand a little bit of the jadedness of weddings because I overstand that. But what was hard about admitting back to yourself that maybe wedding work wasn't as fulfilling as you? Because sometimes that becomes our identity.
Mhm.
And also, too, we are getting paid and we're paying our bills. And so we feel this tear between I do this well, I have clients, I'm getting money, but
Mhm.
this is not what I want to continue. Like,
Yeah.
how was that shift for you?
Well, so a few thoughts on that. So, you mentioned like I start my business, I'm making money. And again, like I just kind of want to point out like, and it happens a lot with creatives, is the act of making money and charging correctly.
Mhm,
So I kind of wasn't for a long time. And I think with creatives, what happens is that our own personal money mindsets
mhm,
tend to cloud how we approach money and like asking for it from clients. So,
yeah,
for a long time and I'm photographing weddings for $1,600 and I'm like, God, this is so much money. I can't believe it. I can't that's like my full month's rent. I can't believe they're paying me this.
yeah,
And then finally like leaving the wedding industry as a photographer and making 8, 9, 10, 11, $12,000 a wedding. But, yeah, for the money was great. Honestly, I think a lot of it had to do with me finding my husband again at the age of 40 and
mhm,
thinking, okay, is this really what I want to do with my weekends? I know that
mhm,
my body's not the same as it was when I was 25.
yeah,
Do I really need to be carrying 20 pounds of gear on my body for 10, 20 hours a weekend? Or just the gear depreciation, my eyes might be getting worse, whatever it is. So there were a lot of factors. The social media thing just kind of hurt my heart to see all these content creators coming onto the scene. And then just the amount of trends and how for me, for my couples, and what I realized, I don't want anybody to flame me about how I perceive weddings, it just felt like a lot of couples were trying to do things on their wedding day just for Instagram. And I'm like, that's not.
yeah, popularity.
Yeah. And so you'll see even a lot of creatives in the industry, they're not having weddings like that either. They're mostly eloping. And that's pretty much what my
Mhm,
husband and I did. We ran away to Italy and got married. And I was like, this is great. But yeah, so it for me, it was a bunch of reasons kind of getting out. I just knew that if I continued, I was risking a 1-star review on Google, or I was risking
mm,
set bride, and I don't wanna do that because of my personal feelings changed about the industry, you know what I mean? So,
yeah,
like, while I'm very good and while the output was great and I'm making beautiful albums and mothers of the bride loved me, like, I couldn't I personally keep doing I didn't wanna, like, be a sellout and be like, "Oh, this shit sucks, but whatever, they're paying me 8 grand," you know? So,
mhm.
I couldn't make money that way. I had the second brand to kind of fall back on.
And what I hear is integrity.
Mhm.
And I think that that is something that is extremely admirable. And I think that integrity can actually coexist in entrepreneurship, not
Mhm.
just because it sounds catchy, but you can actually do something that aligns with you. It doesn't mean every day is perfect by no means.
Right.
Uh, but if you know, like, I really don't agree with certain things, or I don't really want to go on the trend of certain things, Like it's okay to shift and pivot. Like I even know what I do. There's more apps that are getting into the space because then they have a centralized place and they're like, oh, we can do the events online and people aren't
Yeah.
coming, but it's getting done. You know, and cutting corners in all these ways. And I'm like, yeah, if that excited me, I could,
Yeah.
but it doesn't.
Yeah.
So why am I going to? And I hope that someone that may be shifting, not because they're in our same age bracket, but regardless of where you are, like if you're going to slog this out,
Mhm.
like the amount of sacrifice that it takes to grow as a person, to grow as a business, and it should mean something to you.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
should
and
mean something to you.
and, and whether you like it or not, like, your personal feelings are going to appear in your work, and so I
Yes.
just that like I said, I didn't wanna ruin anyone's day, I didn't wanna upset anybody, and I just knew that these were my personal feelings about it, and so maybe it was
Mhm.
time to move on because it will show. It will show.
So since people knew you this way, like for some of your your previous clients or your circle, how did
Mhm.
they start to receive your shift? Like, did you have people excited about this new
I
opportunity, or what was it?
No, you're right because, like, what we do is so much a part of, like, who you are, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, there was some shock. I think people were like, "What? Oh, really?" But I think other people were like, "I knew it," because I was ramping up the photo booth brand.
Mm,
So, you kind of start seeing trends coming up and maybe I'm not following them or maybe I'm posting less on this Instagram. So for 100% of they were all supportive. I didn't have any pushback or anybody that was like, I mean, there's a few people that are like, come out of retirement to photograph my wedding. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. And, but like,
yeah.
I'm I think it was pretty well received. It was celebrated almost. So, I mean, the last wedding I shot, my team came over and like got a big group shot of everybody. It was very special. So, I mean, I don't regret it. It was needed. It was time.
How long did the transition happen from you doing, I guess, discovering photo booths? Because I
Mhm.
do want to talk about, like you said, you were at a conference. So, like,
Mhm.
I want to talk about what conference, how did you find out? Because I don't think I know in the wedding industry, there's conferences. I know there's associations and things like that. So I do want to touch on like why the conference, but from when you see it at the conference and you get in your first booth to the last wedding,
Yeah.
how much time was happening during that period?
Uh, about 8 years. 8 years.
Uh,
So, yeah, and the conference, so it was called Inspire. It was actually a conference for New England photographers. I didn't know that. I was just like, "Ooh, Newport, Rhode Island, sign me the fuck up because I'm trying to get out of Florida." So I went for it, and I'm like, I got my laptop out. I'm still culling wedding photos. I'm like, "Y'all aren't busy right now?" They're like, "No, it's winter." And I'm like, "God, this is like the thick of my season." They're like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "Florida." Why are you here? And I was like, "Oh, this is New England? Like, this is a New England thing?" But yeah, it was Inspire photo retreats. They would have it was for a few days. I couldn't tell you what the details were. It was 2016. But, we were all in a hotel. We would kind of like photograph or shoot each other all over the lobby, all over the rooms. They had speakers come in and like big names, people that I really admired, Susan Stripling, Charmi Patel Pena, like they were all there and you got to kind of like geek out over them. Um, but
mhm.
yeah, and so there are karaoke nights, and so you all kind of like get drunk at the end of the night too. So it was a good time. And back then there were a lot of photo retreats, and they weren't styled shoots. They were educational. They had speakers and professional photographers coming in and kind of speaking with you. And it was 100% worth the money. I don't think those are happening very much now. I think
Mhm.
now the retreats are fellow wedding professionals who dress to a style guide and you all just kind of stand around and tell each other how awesome you are. And there are some educational moments, but I don't really see a ton of them. There's keynotes and whatever, but for the most part, it's like, look at us party. So,
Yeah.
and I'll be honest, I am part of those professional associations as well, but it's definitely different. There's not like a huge focus on education like there was back then. But yeah, I was thirsty for education because I didn't have, besides like my local mentor, I didn't have anybody to kind of like teach me. So he was just in the wedding space and in Miami, and a very classically trained photographer doing like traditional wedding photography, like these blurry photos and, tilted angles. We're not doing any of that. This is very classic and refined. So,
Yeah.
I reached out, or I definitely seeked out those educational retreats, which I'm bummed that they don't really happen that often anymore.
Yeah, because even when I've gone to association meetings, I was surprised, like wedding ones, and I would look at someone's Instagram and all the amazing stuff they were doing. And I was like, this person probably has at least a $500,000 to $1 million business. And I'm like, so like, what platform are you using to help run your business? And they're like Excel spreadsheet, and I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
okay,
GoDaddy.
so like I see that we're not. Yeah, I'm like, so we're literally not learning how to run a business
Yeah.
without the chaos. So you talked about the education, but you said it took 8 years from you first seeing it at the kit. So how, because I know this question honestly slides into my inbox more times than not.
Yeah.
How did you go about actually acquiring some of your first clients in the corporate space, considering all this time prior you were just doing weddings? Like, was it scary to you, or like how did that all go?
Yeah, terrifying. So, I mean, and it's like every step of my journey was just, another step anyway, another step. So, like, the restaurant industry, I'm
Mhm.
around people and I'm like, hey, let me photograph you on the weekend. Great. Now I know how to photograph families. And I kind of stepped up, and then, shooting events and then getting into weddings. And then one of my past brides was like, hey, have you ever shot a conference before? And I was like, no, that sounds really boring. And she's like, well, my job's looking for a corporate event photographer. And I was like, I'll give it a shot. Like, how hard could it be? Boys do it. So,
Yeah.
and I show up in my like wedding photographer gear, my dual harness, and I think I'm hot shit. And I realize that like, if you can shoot a groomsman speech, you can shoot corporate, because it's just a lot of men on microphones talking for the most part for these like corporate events. And then there's
Yeah.
usually a party or a reception for a couple hours at the end, a little happy hour. And that's just like shooting a wedding reception. So if you know how to
Gotcha.
use your camera there, I'm pretty good at that. And I actually have a blog post about how corporate photographers, like corporate, I guess, event planners should be seeking out wedding photographers to shoot their corporate events,
Yeah.
because skill set is very much the same. But anyway, so yeah, I had a bride who was like, they've got this corporate event, and I went and photographed it, and I was like, whoa, this is really kind of the same shit, but now it's on a
Yeah.
Tuesday and I'm making better money. Yeah. So I fell in love pretty quickly. I was like, and you learn, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more too, but you learn the differences in wedding photography and corporate. In wedding photography, I am pretty much the ringleader if there's not a planner. Towards the end, I required a planner, but for the most part, I didn't. So, I'm the one that's wrestling the groomsmen and the bridesmaids. And I'm like, okay, you I guess stay here, and I'm going to get your family in a second. And we're going to do these family shots. Okay, great. We're going to the reception. Like, you are pretty much the planner if there's not one on site. In a corporate environment, you are the photographer and you are just going to do what they tell you to do, And so it was kind of an ego check to be like, I'm not running this show. There are people way above me, and there's more above her. So again, ego check, but also learning how the day kind of flows. So, I was very used to wedding photography, and you're pretty much shooting the entire day. And with corporate, it's like, okay, I can get a few pictures of the speaker. I mean, how many shots can you get of this man on stage? And I
Yeah.
can sit, And so it was just kind of learning all those nuances. But yeah, doing that first conference, and then them hiring me again for their company picnic in the summer, and then again for headshots. And I was like, wow, this is their, and they start to kind of become a family, and they see me as their photographer.
Yeah.
It branches out. So then, I'm photographing a keynote speaker, and they're like, hey, thanks so much for the photos. Hey, listen, I've got this other thing. So it all kind of like weaved into new opportunities from there.
That's the thing I love about corporate. That makes me, anytime I'm like, oh, but I have this baby shower. No, I can recommend you to someone. It's,
Yeah. Well, that's the dream in creative business, is when you get to the point where you can start declining certain
yeah,
things. Oh, I remember that vividly when I was finally like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't have to.
yeah.
Yeah, and so photographing corporate, but yeah, it took probably a year of planning for me to finally pull out of the wedding photography space, because, couples book you a year, 18 months out. So you really need to make the decision at one point so that you're not satisfying contracts still a year later, and you can have
Yeah.
that mind space to kind of build what you really want to build. So yeah, it was scary, like realizing that like, okay, well, a big chunk of this money is leaving, but you kind of start seeing the revenue numbers like balance out, and then the photo booth brand kind of going higher and higher because now I had the capacity and the bandwidth to focus on that while still photographing corporate.
So, what would you say was the hardest part about building credibility with the brands when you didn't really have a corporate portfolio yet in the beginning stages?
Um, I think building credibility, I mean, for me and my wedding photography brand, I was never like, like I said, I was never like, I'm going to be your sixth bridesmaid and butterflies and whatever. So I'd never had like a pretty brand with a watercolor logo. My logo's
Yeah.
always been the same, a paper airplane with my name because I have a cool name. So I figured that would be it. So it always kind of looked corporate. I never really kind of fell into like a frou-frou wedding website design. It was still always black and white and just cool and kind of plain. And letting the photos speak for themselves. So for me, as far as like branding and everything goes, and my perception of how I am on the internet,
Mhm.
it was seamless. But building out a page on my wedding website for corporate, having that linked in the footer, knowing SEO really well because I'm a product of the early 2000s building a business, and this is what we
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
And so I was able to kind of launch that pretty quickly. And then once I photographed my last wedding last year, I think it was like the week after, I paid my girl to just flip everything over to corporate and removed all wedding stuff off my website. So having the domain authority of having a website that's 18 years old, but now it's for corporate, kind of helped me as well.
And I'm glad that you did that because I feel that sometimes people try to show all the things
Mm-mm, you
and
can't.
it hurts them. And even what I would tell people if they did weddings that I've talked to, I'm like, you don't want it to be that you necessarily have this gigantic hole at the bottom. As like you
Mm,
may not market the ways that they can work with you, but if they already you have their trust and experience, why can't they hire you to do anniversary shots? Why can't they
mhm.
hire? I was like, but if you don't nurture people, I'm like, you don't put it on your website, you don't put it on your socials. That's just a post wedding communication. And so, what I'm glad that you did too is like, no, I can't confuse people when they come to the page.
Yeah.
What do I really want them to book? And I feel that some people fall victim or in a trap of trying to show all the things to
Mhm.
attract all the people compared to really speaking to the audience that they really want to work with.
No, totally. And I think about this a lot now, even with the photo booth brand. But I think I'll never tell anybody to niche down. For 2020, being able to photograph weddings, families, corporate brand headshots saved me in 2020. So I was on unemployment. I
Mhm.
watched 80% of my revenue disappear in 1 week in March. And so, but knowing that like corporate events were still happening because corporate needed to. And so I was able to kind of photograph that. But I will say, while you don't necessarily have to niche down, your web presence does have to attract that one client. And
Yes.
for me, like on my website, I couldn't have like, a bride and a groom like recessing from their ceremony and then like a keynote speaker on stage at a convention center. So you're definitely confusing people. And I say that I still think about that in the photo booth brand because we still do a lot of weddings and we do them very well, but we also do a lot of corporate and brand activations, which in the photo booth world is like the holy grail getting into corporate. And
Yeah.
so I actually just had my website redone this year, but it has to speak to both of those buyers at the same time.
Yeah.
I feel like in a year or two, I'm going to have to split the websites and brand them completely separately. But
Yeah.
for now, it does work. It works for us.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that because I don't feel that people understand that portion
Yeah.
that
It's
comes to that.
Yeah, I mean, because people are hungry and because they feel like, oh, I
Yeah.
can do this and I'm also going to get some corporate leads. But yeah, the people that are booking your corporate events, the destination managers or the production assistants or whoever they are, they don't want to see glam booths and, pretty brides on the page. They want to make sure that like you can execute this activation and that they're going to get a good ROI and that people are going to share it on Instagram. Like the wants and needs are two totally different things, and you can't
Mhm.
put that on the page. Can't.
Yeah, and one of the things I definitely want us to talk about is the evolution of booths and like the confidence to go into it. Like I know as myself as a coordinator, I remember when I first started seeing booths come up, and typically it had to be a very heavy cost because it wasn't what it looks like now. And
Yeah.
then it went from doing the booths to the backdrops, then to 360. And then
Mhm.
now we're up to, the glam bots to I feel like the industry itself has shifted, but I feel that, and with that being said, with adding photo booths into your business, some people are scared to do this because some photographers either treat photo booths as beneath them or they're scared to add it as a second service.
Yeah.
Like, is that something you've seen other people experience with having a fear to add it or thought?
I mean, I feel like I was kind of fearless adding it only because, again, I think my ego got in the way. I had just seen too many sweaty DJs trying to suffer through a photo booth, and some like wrinkled green screen at a bar mitzvah. And people are like, "Was that your photo booth?" And I'm like, "No, no, no, that's not. They're not." And so I knew that I could do it better. There's definitely a fear out there. mm, but if there isn't a fear, I would say what's bigger is that I do see a lot of photographers wanting to add it on. And I've talked about this before with other folks, but I don't think they understand that it's a completely different business, that it is its own business and it deserves to be nurtured like a second brand. And it's
Mhm.
not just a quick add on. So, because things can get muddy, So it's like, yeah, you're photographing this conference, but then like they also want the photo booth. And for 4 days and 8 hours a day, now you've got to hire an attendant. And so a lot of creatives don't understand that hiring is not just 1099ing people. You can't do that. So
Yeah.
it's, being an employer. But yeah, there's definitely the fear there, but if you do it the right way, like, it's pretty lucrative and it's a huge industry and it's not going away, but the evolution is funny because it's cyclical. And so you're talking about like how there were enclosed booths and then we're moving to open air and 360s and glam bots. Well, guess what's popular again? Enclosed booths. Like brides are looking for this vintage style,
Oh,
fully photo booth, and some of them want it analog, and then they're confused when they reach out and they're like, "Yeah, it's 12 grand for the day." Like they're like, "What?"
yeah.
Yeah. There's
Not cheap.
less than 1,000, maybe even less than less of analog vintage enclosed photo booths in the country.
Mm,
But yeah, like my team wants me to buy an enclosed photo booth. I don't think it matches our logistics being across 2 states right now having,
yeah.
but it is cool seeing the evolution. And I will say that another good part about working in corporate is that it taps more into my creativity.
Mhm.
Um, because with weddings, 90% of them want a white backdrop, black and white of a skin smoothing filter, their
Mhm.
name and logo in the corner. And it's been like that since 2016. And
Yeah.
frankly, and so, and I wish that trend would move on by now. I feel like there's so many cool experiences and cool things we can do now with photo booths, but it's just not budging. With corporate, the scope is always different. The
Yeah.
expectation they want in the end is always different. And so it's really nice to finally get back into a little more creativity and to like figure out, okay, like, we have this new scribble booth. Okay, how can we do this for like a pop-up at a concert, and like are they writing lyrics on the screen or, so it's just a bunch it's nice to finally like I don't know, I feel like an artist again now with corporate work. It sounds weird, but it feels creative again with corporate work and photo
A-
booths.
And I think also too in the corporate space, they're looking for innovation. I don't feel like
Yes.
weddings are,
No,
I don't feel like
no.
that's
They
the
want
thing.
what their best
Everybody,
friend wants to be
yeah,
better.
they're just copying.
Yeah.
That's all they're doing. Where with corporate, they, especially for certain action events that are happening annually, they're literally not trying to do rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Like they want something that's going to stand out based on the intention of that specific event.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of why, like, on my social media, on one Instagram reel, it kind of popped off last week, and I was like, "Stop hiring the spinny booth for your event." that 360 because it's like we've seen it, and it's like
Yeah.
how much work is a 8-second video really going to do on someone's private stories for your brand, So
Yeah.
trying to come up with or seeking out and going to, like I said, photo booth expo and walking the floor and going, oh, this is what's new. Okay, claw machines are really in right now. The scribble booth, Glambot, all of these like video AI experiences. There's a lot of really cool stuff that we can do with photo booths that we're just not seeing in the wedding industry.
Yeah, and I think too, like for corporate, they really depend, not all corporate, let's just say that.
Mhm.
But for some corporations, like they really are like locked into, we're not just doing something to just do something. We're
Yeah.
doing something for whatever that reason is. We want it to be that we're getting more visibility, want to be able to have, either something, people can take back, take with them, but it has to make sense, like it's intentional
Lead
because I feel
gener-
like corporate, they'll spend money but it has to make sense, like,
Yeah.
as to why they're doing that thing.
Yeah, correct. And so, when we really lean in on our proposals and our quotes to corporate clients about what they're really getting out of it, and even just like lead generation, one email and the value of one email collected at the booth and what that can mean to their internal marketing, like
Mhm.
it's it's not just taking a pretty photo at a trade show and then you're like, okay, bye. So
Yeah,
they are looking for those things. I think that's what a lot of newer boothers, they see that, okay, we're working during the week and we're making pretty great money, but
yeah,
it's not, or they're like, how come corporate's more expensive? Well, it's a completely different service. It's not
yeah,
the weddings it's pretty much automated on our end now. Like we can get through all the different steps for a bride pretty quickly. But for corporate, I mean, there was one client I had where it was 68 emails back and forth before they even signed the contract. And I had to
mm,
say, I'm putting a line here. Like, if y'all want to keep moving forward, I'm going to need you to pay me. So, you
yes.
know, like, are people out there really willing to do that kind of work before you're even paid? I mean, that's kind of the reality of the corporate industry,
So
corporate
what
side.
type of systems or platforms do you use to keep yourself organized? Or I guess, like, what is your tech stack inside of
Yeah.
your business?
Right. So I use a CRM that was built for photographers. It's called Visco Workspace. It used to be called
Mm,
Tave. Visco Workspace just bought Tave. I will probably stop talking about them right here because I don't think they're innovating to their ability. I think they're kind of shutting out a lot of creatives and not. Anyway, but I've been with them since 2012, so I feel like I'm in too deep. The reporting is great. I can pretty much drill down any report that I want. So even just today, I was reaching back out to couples that had inquired with me in a certain area, but their wedding is in X amount of days. And do you still have a photo? Do you have a photo booth? Because we chatted a year ago here.
yeah.
So the reporting it is very robust. It's very, so anyway, I use Visco and I'm using Claude for just some kind of like internal marketing help. Maybe help with like writing my blogs. Like I said, I'm still a product of the early 2000s, so I very much like add blogs to our website. I keep our Google My Business updated all the time. It's helping with Instagram posts. Not really scheduling Instagram. I'm trying to think of what other my text. Oh, we're using Connect Team for the team.
Oh,
So it's a scheduling slash team organizational app. So my team clocks in from there. They see all the shifts from there. All of our paperwork, as far as like SOPs, are
hmm,
loaded in the team for them to see. Any like employee handbooks, stuff like that, are all in one space on Connect Team. So it's been really nice. We just kind of
okay,
switched here. Love using them. And I think that's pretty much it as far as like tech goes. So I've got a little bit of AI help and
yeah.
then our CRM and Connect team.
For the photo, well, I guess with this now, you're not doing anything post, so you wouldn't need anything for project management per se.
Yeah.
Compared to like with actual wedding photography, there's more keeping on top of timelines and that capacity because you're personally doing something. So it
Mhm.
probably even saves you time with this shift post event compared
Right.
to what it used to be.
But if I didn't have those systems already built out as a wedding photographer, I would be drowning now. So
Yeah.
we have a VA. She's my sister, but she is our VA, and so she helps with a lot of the client communication about 7 weeks out up to their event. So she's helping with like template design, any overlay design, things like that.
Hmm.
Get information for COIs so we can, provide those.
Yeah.
But, yeah, having those systems in place for the wedding business has really helped this way too. But yeah, there's really no post-processing besides setting like post-event analytics.
Yeah.
When we have guest book, I was sending files, but we no longer offer that service just because I don't want to do anything post-event. I think it should just be here's your analytics. Thanks so much. Hire us again.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And so how many team members do you currently have?
Currently have 8 part-time team members,
Okay.
because of the event industry, so it's kind of gig based.
Yes.
So there's some that work maybe 1 event a month. We do have 3 lead attendants, and I call them my big 3, so they're the core, and they get scheduled the events, a week out, a month out, and then
Mhm.
I have other support, staff that can kind of assist them and support them at events.
That's exciting. So, like, seeing and knowing you have this type of support, is this something that when you first saw the booth, that
Yeah.
you envisioned
No,
it would
no.
be where it is now?
No way, no way, because you see the booth and you're like, "Oh, those are really nice photos, and I'm definitely gonna blow those DJs out of the water now," you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
like, I wasn't even thinking that I would be in multi six figures or, or being able to move to a completely different state from my team and my business and still, you know, not be homeless. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's wild. It took a while for me to kind of see it as a real business, like, this is a real career, and I think about it every time I'm at, like, a chamber of commerce meeting because, it's a lot of dinosaurs usually there, and they're like, photo booth? You do what?" And I'm like, "It's a marketing company." We're like, we're in marketing, but we use photo booths and photo experiences to market your company." So,
Yeah.
it's been really fun to kind of see how it's progressed to here, for sure.
And I love that you actively participate in your community.
Yes.
I recently did, like maybe 2 months ago, a post saying that I wish that more entrepreneurs and founders took advantage of their resources in their local communities because I feel that people are I think that the phones,
Mhm.
people think like, well, if I just
Action.
post online. I'm like, depending on who your client base is, they're not even looking for you online. They're not even, so you're not even going to be shown on their algorithm because they literally aren't looking for your solution.
Yeah.
So this is why we have to get out in the world and meet people and talk to people, advocate for our business, make sure. I'm like, yes, it'd be great to be a global company. Love that. Want
Yeah.
people, if that's what's on your heart, I want you to have that. But how about we also make sure that the people within a 30-mile radius know about us too?
No, 100%. And I see it a lot on TikTok and, I'll go on live and people are like, "How do you market yourself? I've tried everything. I'm cold emailing wedding planners and I've sent emails and I've sent emails and I've sent emails." And I'm like, "I need you to put on a nice pair of pants and get out of the house and go and do some in-person networking, and it's not
Yeah,
just networking and the Chamber of Commerce and whatever, but I need you to get involved in your community." So
yeah.
we in South Florida, we work with Compass, which is an LGBTQ center down there to make sure that the youth have the support that they need,
Uh-huh.
especially this time. And then we work closely with Make Our Schools Safe because we were so close to the Parkland tragedy that happened in 2018. We
Mm,
L'Oreal Def really closely and do a lot of her events pretty much at cost just to make sure that the word gets out there. And, we're not doing these events to put our name on their photo print,
yeah.
or to eyes, but to really just like be part of the community that has, supported us for so long.
Yeah. And I think there's so much value in just getting out. Like
Mhm.
being an entrepreneur for so long, like I tell people, like it's been almost a decade that I've always been in part of even a co-working community.
Yeah.
And they're like, why? I was like, do you see how y'all went crazy with 1 month in the pandemic, being
Yeah.
locked in your house and y'all still locking yourselves in seclusion?
Yeah.
Like, there's so much value in getting in front of people, talking to people. And
Mhm.
honestly, too, depending on the kind of client that you want to work with, they're too busy anyway. So you sending them emailing, like, yes, you can still get connections through email. Yes, you can, like, those things work. But
Mhm.
also, there needs to be something else as well that's real life, that's tangible to be able to connect with people. Cause I feel like that's still very valuable in a day and age where people think all I have to do is put my phone up. Well, there's still power in Like I recently just was at an event that was helping to be on their council to plan it. And in my mind, if I had to be honest, I'm like, well, I just go. It's great for the community that I'm a part of. I had literally no expectation. I'm like, I might network with someone that might be a good friend, or whatever. I went with no expectation. It was a 4-day thing. And one of the main contributors was a party planning company here.
Oh,
And she sees on my card that I'm a HoneyBook Pro. She's like, I've been wanting to find one and you actually live here. And I was like,
right?
great. All it took for me to do was be a part of something that already mattered to me.
Yeah.
And I was able to cross paths with someone that is able to benefit from me as a consultant,
Yeah.
as well as feeding into the community in which at large that I'm a part of. And I think that if more people took the time to do it intentionally, that doesn't mean every day we're going to networking events or anything like that, because that's not realistic either. But it does take being intentional to get out of your home and talk to people and be in spaces.
Yeah, totally. And and I had these thoughts about like I said, I mentioned before, Photo Booth Expo. So this is a yearly thing where all the photo boothers go to Vegas for a week, and and it's not just partying and looking at photo booths, but I tell people every time they ask me, "Is it worth it? Is it worth it?" I'm like, you need to meet people. Like you need,
Yeah.
and I was invited to a dinner of 6 and 7 figure photo booth owners. I mean, making 7 figures as a photo booth operator, this is crazy. But to
Yeah.
be in the same space and to be in a room and having dinner with people better than me, when for a long time here I feel like, because I am kind of seen as a leader, I'm in the Photo Booth Expo Hall of Fame, like
Mm.
people do come to me for mentorship or guidance, but for me now to feel that, to feel like, oh, now I can like talk with these people, is it that's it's I mean, I have goosebumps like thinking about it. It's so stupid, but like it's priceless, really. And it's just because got off my butt and went and met people, even though I feel like I don't do well in social settings or in group settings like in high school. But that's it's so important, and it's bad to see that events like that are built around networking or education are kind of dwindling away in the creative space.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate because, like, that's what prompted me to do that post 2 months ago, because I'm like, I intentionally mentor at the entrepreneur centers here. And I do try to, like, if there's a speaking opportunity, I don't mind being on a panel to just speak. I'm like, because I like talking about systems and things like that, which I get is not the most sexiest thing. So whenever someone's like, just we, like, I think what you talk, I'm like, I am not the person that you have as a one woman show. Yes, what I say matters. Yes, I can add value. However, do people get excited to listen about what I talk about? By no
Probably not.
means. I was like, but
Yeah.
I am great on a panel. And so I'm going to these things, they're having tickets sell out, but people are not showing. And I'm like,
Mhm.
this is going to blow up for y'all. Like, because, and I think too, because of like where we are societal wise, people are just trying to survive, unfortunately. So every moment they have, it's allocating to something. So if you're listening to what we're talking about right now and you feel like your plate is really full, I get that and I hear you. What I also would challenge yourselves to see, what can I do to free up some time at least once a quarter or
Mhm.
at least twice a year that you are intentionally allowing yourself to be in spaces? Because if you don't make that time, you can be potentially missing out on something that's going to help with shifting your business so that you have more free time
Yeah.
and
Yeah. No,
have more resources.
yeah, just being in that dinner in Vegas connected me with a booth owner, and then, weeks later, I'm at F1 in Miami helping him with a video activation, and then 2
Yeah.
weeks later, I'm in LA for another corporate client, but I'm noticing the PR girl and I'm like, "Weren't you in Miami?" And she's like, "Oh my God, hey," so it's like just from being in that same space, and it's
Yeah.
maybe that bring me more work. It brought
Yeah.
me so many, but like, it's not bringing extra clients, but it's changing your mindset, which in turn is going to just improve your business.
Yeah. Yeah. As we wrap it up, I do have just a few more questions for you. So this is for you to be, not that you haven't been honest, but for you, what's still hard about this business, even now with brand clients and a multi-market setup?
Yeah, it's hard now because we're definitely in some growing pains, in a growing pains kind of moment now. So knowing that we can activate or we can do these events all over the country. So it's really, I'm struggling with communicating to potential clients that, like, no, I don't need to travel to this in order to run your print booth. Like, we have vetted partners all over the country that can do this for us. And also, I see it with my team a little bit. I think they're a little sad that I'm no longer in the country, even though we're not like hanging out, but
Yeah.
that they might feel like they're less supported. So for me as an employer, just trying to make sure that they are still in the same mindset, that they know that, like, things are pretty much the same. I'm still coming back quarterly. I'm still going to work the big events. I'm going to come back. I didn't move to Zimbabwe, like it's North
Yeah.
Carolina from Florida.
Exactly.
So that has been a struggle for me. And honestly, like in the event space and in two southern states, the summers are typically slower. And so it feels like the revenue doesn't come in the same it does like throughout the year. So you're having to really financially plan for these slow
Yes.
has been kind of a lot. And so especially now with no events really on the horizon for the next couple of weeks, like I'm just kind of like sitting around like, who am I? What do I do now? Then like I'm starting to garden a little bit, and like I'm like, I don't know, what to do now. So these are like the things that I struggle with now.
Those are good things to struggle with, and that's part of the growth process, and I think too, with you mentioning about understanding the ebbs and flows, I don't think a lot of people are present to it because it doesn't fail, especially since social media, like people are sharing all the highlight reels. Or their grievances. It's either
Yeah.
or, nothing in between. Is that I will see people I'll see more of those my price is my price post in January because of people on the holiday party
Feeling pretty confident.
high and they thinking like, oh, this is it's only one direction is up and it's
Yeah.
January. And you're like, no, that's not what happens in catering. Yeah, like it picks back up in like another 2 quarters. But if
Yeah.
you are just spending a bunch because it comes in at Q4, you won't plan accordingly or nest money away
Mhm.
for the
Yeah.
busier months. And it's important to understand those things.
Yeah, and not only that, but using this kind of and I use the term time off, loosely, but and now I'm buttoning up my website. I'm making sure the systems are right because I know that once August hits, we're going to be balls to the wall again. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm enjoying a little bit of time off and freaking out a tiny bit, but like also kind of preparing because I'm not going to be able to do all this in September.
Yeah, no, I agree. So one of the final questions that I have is that this is intended to help with anyone that's just getting new. What's one thing you've stopped doing that changed how your business feels for you today?
I stopped selling the equipment. So for a long time, I just thought that if I were like, oh, this is a DSLR photo booth with studio quality lighting and instant digital delivery, and like nobody gives a shit. They don't care. And so you really need to like sell the experience. And I think
Yes.
that folks are really looking for experience led, things at their events. And so really leaning into like the sentimentality of a photo booth at a wedding and trying to explain to couples that like, hey, this is where like your best friend's aunt is going to meet your mom, like at the photo booth. And this is where like
Yeah.
all the connections are going to happen. And you're going to look at your brother like, oh my God, who is it? Like those things happen at a photo booth. And like, we're
Yeah.
not, doing a glam booth with 4x6 prints and the same thing for corporate. So, this isn't just like a funny AI astronaut that we're transforming your trade show attendees into, but we're actually like generating all of these leads and we're giving you now like a nice like conversation starter. So when they're done with the photo booth, they can come talk to you about your software or whatever. So
Yeah.
kind of leaning into the experience has been a game changer for me. I think once that clicked, I was like, oh, okay. And
Yeah.
so from there, revenue's gone up. But
Fantastic. So I would like for you to share where can people find you, learn more about your services, and connect with you.
yeah. So my photography website is sanjuphotography.com. Our photo booth website is jujubooth.com. And you can find us on Instagram at juju_booth or juju activations.
Fantastic. Well, I truly appreciate you for being a yes today. And this has been a really, I feel, well-rounded conversation.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I want to talk to you more now.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like I made a new friend.
Oh, There's not a lot of like I feel like there's a lot of people in the industry, but I think certain levels, it definitely changes as you continue down the pathway. So we're gonna have to stay connected for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This has really been nice, and I'm glad that it finally happened.
Yes. I hope you truly enjoyed today's conversation. So if you're hearing Stephanie's story and you're starting to think about how your own business is set up, I made a free guide that maps out the exact tools event pros just like you need at every stage of your business. It's called the Complete Business System Stack. I made sure to put the link in the description, and you can also scan the QR code on this video to get your copy. As always, thanks for listening to today's episode, and I look forward to you listening to the next one.